I just paid a small bill with your card. That was the text from my mom. 12 hours later, my account was emptied. $5,900. My dad just smiled. He said, "Charity." And I was silent. I just did something quietly. The next morning, at 9 a.m. sharp, my mother logged into her Gmail account and screamed so loud that the neighbors heard her. But before we get to that part, let's go back to a month before when everything broke. It was my mom's birthday. We hadn't spent time together in a long time. My mom chose this fancy restaurant called the Silver Oak Tavern. Obviously it was out of my budget, but I said to myself, it's once a year. She had such a blast that day. Starters, desserts, cocktails, everything was ordered. When the bill came, he looked at me with an innocent smile. I left my wallet in the car. I had to go to the restroom, so I gave my card to my mom to pay the bill and then give it back to me, of course. But when I left, she said she had an urgent call and in the confusion I forgot it. When I got home at night, I realized I didn't have it. I texted her. "Oops," she said. "I accidentally left it in my bag. I'll bring it when we meet." I believed him. Because it was easier to believe. It was more comfortable to say, she forgot, than to let the truth burn me. Time passed. I didn't ask again. I was already using Apple Pay on my phone, I didn't really need a physical card. He probably forgot, I told myself. Until that Saturday morning. I was lying in bed. I got a text on my phone. "I used your card for a bill. I'll pay it back on Monday." Something was wrong. Normally he would have asked first. But I tried not to think about it. I said, "It's probably the electricity bill or something. $80, maybe $100. I didn't make a big deal out of it. But something was wrong with me. Around 10 o'clock at night, I couldn't take it anymore and opened my bank's app. A big number on the screen, $12.36. My stomach tightened. I refreshed the screen twice. There had to be a mistake. Then I checked my account activity. 3 big withdrawals. $1,900, $1,700, $1,600. They were all listed as AC transfer. On the same day, a few hours apart. Then I called my mom. No answer. No answer. I called my dad. "It's off." I couldn't sleep that night. I guess you couldn't sleep either. I kept refreshing my account every minute, like the numbers would change. I finally texted my friend Grayson Wells. He was a lawyer. I needed to know what I could do. I sent screenshots. I told him that my mom had the card for a long time and that I had not authorized these transactions. He wrote one sentence. "Send me the entire list of transactions and their email addresses." I got in my car early Sunday morning. I didn't tell them. I still had the spare key to the house. In a quiet neighborhood in Charlotte, their car was in the garage. I opened the door, went inside, went into the living room. It's 8:30 a.m. Silence. Only the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I sat on the couch and waited. It was a few seconds past 9 when my mom's phone vibrated on the coffee table. A Gmail notification. She looked at the screen, opened it, and screamed. It was such a scream that the neighbors outside came out into the street. One of them came to the door and asked, "Is everything okay?" But she didn't say anything. He just stared at his phone, frozen. My father came in from the kitchen with a coffee cup. He asked what happened. Mom handed him the phone with trembling hands. He looked at it, took a sip of his coffee, then laughed sarcastically. "Charity, huh?" That's when I realized. They hadn't taken that money because of a debt, a mistake or a misunderstanding. They took it because they could. I didn't say anything. I just watched. The email my mother was looking at the time was the official notice from Grayson Wells. It was written in legalese. Unauthorized use of my credit account information, unauthorized possession of the card, and unauthorized withdrawals totaling $5,900. If a refund was not made within 72 hours, the case would be taken to civil court. When my mother saw that email, she screamed not because she felt guilty, but because she had been caught. She was afraid of being exposed, not ashamed. The neighbors slowly returned to their homes. Mom was still not moving. My father looked at me with a wry smile. "Asher, come on, you don't have to turn this into a tragedy," he said. It was the first sentence I had ever heard him say. I kept quiet. I wasn't going to beg for my money back. I wasn't going to argue with them. I just waited. My mother finally came to her senses. But instead of apologizing, she started lecturing. "Times are hard," she said. "We have money problems. Have you ever tried to support a family?" Yes, she was wrong. But to him it wasn't stealing. It was just family support. He thought that his own son's money was a shareholder anyway. At that moment I realized that this was not a mistake. It was a mentality. And they thought it was right. I was still silent. When I didn't answer, he raised his voice. "We were going to pay it back anyway. But you went and made a scene with a lawyer." He called me disrespectful, ungrateful, an enemy of the family. And finally he said, "What right do you have to embarrass us so much?" I asked only one thing. "Where is my card?" He was silent for a moment. Then he looked away. "I think it might be in a drawer somewhere," he said. I opened the old junk drawer in the kitchen. Pens, coins, batteries. And there, under the Bed Bath & Beyond brochure, I found my card. I picked it up, walked quietly. He followed me. "I was going to give it back," she yelled. But I just opened the door and walked out. As I stepped into the street, he was still calling after me. "Asher. Don't make such a big deal." When I got home, 9 missed calls. 5 from my mom, 4 from my dad. And 2 unknown numbers. Then I got a text. "Don't destroy this family over misunderstandings. Don't make a big deal with a lawyer. Let's talk first. Don't do anything stupid." I blocked them all, along with the numbers. About an hour later my phone rang again. The number wasn't familiar, but I had a feeling I should answer it. It was my Uncle Henry, my mom's older brother. "What's going on in your new house?" he asked in a calm voice. It turned out that one of the neighbors had called him after hearing the screams in the morning. "Something's happened," they said. "Evelyn is in very bad shape." My uncle went home, my mother was crying, my father was cold. Neither of them told her the truth. The card, the message, the $5,900 loss, the silence, all of it. He was silent for a while. Then he said, "Go to the police. Right away. Maybe they won't do anything, but there has to be a record of this. Otherwise they can blame you." He was right. Later that afternoon, I printed out the bank statement, a screenshot of the text message, and the request email Grayson had sent. I went to the police station around 5:30 p.m. There was an officer on duty. I sat down at his desk and said, "A family member has taken money out of my account without authorization." Without looking up, the man said, "That sounds like a civil matter." I asked, "If someone I don't know takes my card and withdraws money, that would be theft, right? But if my mom does it, is it just a domestic matter?" He didn't answer. He just handed me a form. "We'll keep a record," he said. I filled out the form and left. I had a small piece of paper with a file number on it. That's all. But that paper was enough to start the war. As soon as I got home, I called Grayson. I told him what had happened. Wasting no time, he filed the official civil suit application around midnight. The next morning, at 9:15 a.m., I got a message in my email box. "Case filed." Notification in 48 hours. Everything changed after that moment. Phone calls, threats, accusations. The real story started that day. At 11 o'clock on Tuesday morning, my parents received the notification. 2 hours later, a confidential number called. I answered because I thought it might be work-related. But it was my mother. "Asher, do you know what you did?" she said, her voice forked, almost unrecognizable. "You didn't have to do that. We just wanted to talk." I stayed silent. She continued. "You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Neighbors, relatives. Now everyone thinks we are thieves." Then he added, "I already told you I'll pay you back, what more do you want?" As if I was wrong. He was talking as if I had ruined their lives. I just said one sentence to him. "If you want to have any conversation, talk to my lawyer." And I hung up. 5 minutes later I blocked that number too. But in the afternoon the phone started ringing again. This time it was my father. I ignored the first 5 calls. On the 6th I picked up. His voice was like ice. He wasn't yelling or acting upset. Just a bargaining tone. "It's bad, but we can still fix it," he said. "Drop the case. We'll sort everything out." And then he said this sentence. "This kind of thing not only burns us, it burns you. Taking the family name to court. You'll regret it later." That's when I realized. He was never afraid of being guilty. He was just afraid of people knowing. But that night, he went further. He came to my doorstep. He knocked on the door for minutes. Called my name, said, "Let's just talk." I didn't answer. Then I heard that sentence from behind the wall. With an icy threat in his voice. "You will not win this case. It's your word against ours. Be smart, son." I didn't open the door. But I took the phone and recorded every second of it. I sent the recording to Grayson. He called me within 10 minutes. "This is a direct threat, Asher. It's not just a money case anymore." Not out of fear, but something changed in me. I didn't want to be on the defense anymore. This war had to end. Grayson asked one last time. "If they offer a settlement, will you take it?" This time I answered without thinking. "No. I want a judge to hear everything." And the trial date was put on the calendar. A real court date. It was a week later. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends, not at work. But a storm was brewing inside me. That afternoon, the manager in the office pulled me aside. "Someone called the company hotline and complained about financial fraud against you," he said. "We need to launch an investigation." My face froze. Because that claim was completely absurd. But I knew who did it. Only 2 people knew where I worked. And one of them said, "Be smart," outside my door yesterday. That night, my father's voice echoed in my head. "Be smart, son." I couldn't sleep. It was as if even the walls of the house were watching me. In the morning I called my Uncle Victor. His voice was tired but calm. He had obviously heard what had happened. "You know what, Asher," he said. "They tell everyone a different story." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" He was silent for a while, then continued. "They make it sound like you offered to help them and then made a mess. They say you turned a small misunderstanding into a lawsuit. They are trying to make you look bad." I laughed inwardly, but it didn't come out. What a familiar game. Twisting the truth, turning the victim into a criminal. My uncle continued. "I objected, but most people didn't want to take sides. Some believe you, others remain silent. But know this, if you give up now, you will never be able to defend yourself again." The words hit me right in the heart. "You're right," I said. It was no longer just about money. It was about honor. On Friday, I received an email from Grayson. It was a response from the other side's lawyer. But it was complete bullshit. Vague sentences, evasive phrases. Misunderstanding between the parties, verbal consent, domestic miscommunication, things like that. But nowhere did the word $5,900 appear. No explanation for why they had the card, no explanation for the unauthorized withdrawals. Grayson remained silent on the phone. Then he asked, "If they offer you a deal, will you take it?" This time I didn't even hesitate. No. I want a judge to hear every word. And that's when the real battle began. The trial date was marked on the calendar. It was only a week away. I continued to commute to work as normal. But my mind was in the courtroom that day. I was reliving every second of it. That birthday dinner, the moment I handed him that card. My father's disdainful look. And the way he said, "You're not going to win this case." But the real strangeness began 4 days before the trial date. I got a new message on my phone. From a new number. "Let's just have coffee. No lawyers, no arguments. Just talk. Please." From my mom. No crying emoji, no accusation. Just a simple sentence. I looked at the screen for a long time. I didn't want to go, but I was curious. Maybe this time there really was a voice of conscience. And that coffee meeting changed everything. The meeting place was a small cafe in the center of Charlotte. The name was ironic, Second Chances. Second Chances. How appropriate, right? I arrived 10 minutes before the appointment. I sat in the corner by the door, facing the door. I was stirring my coffee and trying to suppress the beating of my heart. My mother, Monica Lane, was late. When she walked through the door, I had a hard time recognizing her. No makeup, her hands shaking. She had dark circles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept in weeks. She sat quietly. She didn't order anything. She took out a letter from her bag, folded like an envelope. She put it on the table, looked me in the eyes. "This is an apology. Written and signed. I used the money without permission. I regret it. I will pay it all back." At that moment the anger inside me gave way to a cold silence. I didn't touch the letter. He took out a second piece of paper. One check. It's on it, $5,900. Full figure. "Why now?" I said. "You've been quiet for a month, why are you doing this now?" He answered without averting his eyes. "Because if we go to court, your father will lose everything. His job, his pension, his reputation. You will finish him." For a second my heart raced. I wonder what you would do if you were in my shoes at this very moment, but I realized later that even that is not an apology. He was speaking for himself again. No remorse, no conscience. Just fear. "It's not about money anymore," I said. "You have crossed a line. And there's no going back." He was silent for a moment. Then, as if he had a secret trump card, he reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a thick manila folder. "You need to know this," he said. She opened the file. Inside were emails, screenshots, private messages. My messages. My emails. Private notes from my cloud account. My blood was drawn. I said, "Where did you get this?" He did not answer. He just gave a slight smile. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I got up from the table. He called after me, "Asher, stop," but it didn't mean anything anymore. That night I told Grayson everything. I emailed him photos of the documents. He was silent for a while, then he said, "Asher, it's not just money anymore. They've been watching you. This is cybercrime." He went on to explain. "If that note is really from your cloud account, then is an unauthorized access to your email or devices. This is now identity theft and cybercrime." Boiling water poured down my head. When I was home for Christmas a year ago, I had accessed my email from their old computer. So that's where the information was. Grayson said. Give me a second police report tomorrow morning. This case is on a whole other level now. And that's exactly what I did. The next morning I went to the police station and filed a second report. Now it wasn't just unauthorized withdrawals. It was digital theft and identity theft. That same afternoon, I got a text from Grayson. The other side's lawyer has gone silent. 3 hours later, an email ended it all. You won. But you are no longer our son. I read that email twice. Then I deleted it. Monday morning, around 10 a.m. I got an email from Grayson. There were only 2 words in the subject line: settlement offer. Settlement offer. It wasn't just $5,900 anymore. It was $2,000 in additional compensation. And a signed document. Commitment to no further contact with Asher Lane. When I saw that paper, my heart slowed down. Because it wasn't just an agreement. This was a goodbye. I signed it. 2 days later, the money was in my account. I had a new card at Heritage National Bank, a new beginning. My Uncle Victor just sent me a text. They act like nothing happened. Of course. In their world there were no mistakes, only misunderstandings. But the truth makes its presence felt even when it is silent. After 3 weeks of silence, my phone rang again. I didn't recognize the number. I didn't answer. Then came a voicemail. It was my mom. Her voice was tired, hoarse. Asher. The test results were not good. They found a mass. They're going to do more tests. Your father wants to talk to you. We need your help. As I listened to the message, I felt nothing. No anger, no compassion. Just silence. For the first time in 3 weeks, I was at peace. My phone was silent, my mind was at ease, my sleep was restored. And in the middle of that peace, that message came. The next day, another email. From my father. One line. We need help with treatment costs. Don't ignore us. No, we're sorry. No, we were wrong. Just a request, like an order. Like they still thought they could control me. I called Grayson. Asher, you have no legal obligation. Their health is not your responsibility. This is just a new tactic. And then he added. First they tried to control you through guilt, then through fear. Now it's time for mercy. He was right. If it wasn't a game, it was a habit. After 3 days of silence, there was a knock on my door. It was my Uncle Victor. No message, no news. He stood there with a cup of coffee. May I come in? He said. He bowed his head. We sat. A few minutes passed in silence at the kitchen table. Then he took a deep breath. He's really sick, Asher. He has a stage 2 tumor in his liver. It's not too late, but treatment is expensive. He was silent for a moment. Then he looked me in the eyes. You know, they thought you were coming back. Asher will help, they said. They still believe that. Something broke inside me at that moment. The people I once called my family remembered me not because they loved me, but because they deemed it necessary. My uncle continued. If you don't return, this bond will be completely broken. Maybe it's meant to be, I said. Hearing this, he just sighed. I guess they expected greatness from you. But I kept silent. Because greatness was no longer forgiveness, but self-preservation. 2 days later my phone went completely silent. No calls, no messages, nothing. Then I realized. I was removed from the family Facebook group. My name had been deleted from the family calendar of holidays. A cousin texted me and asked, "Why did my aunt take you off the health mail chain?" I just wrote, "Ask them." That night, they blocked me completely. Phone, email, everything. No dramatic farewell, no explanation. Just silence. But this time it didn't hurt. Because for the first time, I felt so free that they couldn't reach me. 9 months passed. Not one call, not one message, not one "we're sorry." It's as if I never existed. But the silence didn't hurt like I thought it would. On the contrary, it was a kind of peace. At first I said to myself, one day you will wake up in the morning and feel empty. But that morning never came. The house was silent, the phone was silent. But there was a serenity inside me that I hadn't felt for years. I had found the peace I had never found in that house, all by myself. One morning while drinking my coffee, I realized I wasn't really missing them. I was missing the family I had dreamed of. The ones I had created in my head. The parents who never really existed. The versions of them that I said one day they will be proud of. But those people never existed. When I faced their reality, I realized it wasn't them I was mourning. It was my hope. And the moment I let go of that hope, the strings of my life were back in my hands. I moved away from Charlotte. To another city, another life. I found a new job, better pay, a clearer mind. New accounts at Heritage National Bank. 2-step security, zero sharing. I reset all my devices. I closed old iCloud accounts. I even changed my hospital emergency contact numbers. There was no door they could reach me through anymore. My Uncle Victor sends me text messages every now and then. Just, "I hope you're okay." Even if I don't reply, he keeps going. This little silent support is more valuable than I realized. Last month I heard from him. My mother is still in treatment. My father is back in counseling. They tried to sell their house but couldn't get the money they wanted. They still tell people, "Asher misunderstood us." As if everything was just a little misunderstanding. Like there was no court case, no lawsuit, no threats. But I know. They're just changing the story. I lived the truth. One day I found a box in my mailbox. No name, no address. Inside were my childhood photos. A project I did in middle school. And a small note. It was in my father's handwriting. "You chose your own path. Goodbye." There was no date, no signature. I watched the box for hours. I waited for an emotion. Sadness, regret, anger. But I felt nothing. Just relief. Because he was right. I had really made a choice. But this time, I had made that choice not in their shadow, but in my own light. People always say, family is life. Blood is everything. One day you'll regret it. But no one ever says this. Family is sometimes wrong. Sometimes the family chains you to itself while claiming to love you. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is to not stay anymore. That's exactly what I did. My account is safe. My mind is calm. My life belongs to me. They took $5,900. But I got my whole life back.